Welcome back. We are those guys. You see these guys over there? Well, what about those guys? I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always Nick Ferguson, 10 years in the National Football League as a former safety. You can find him at Nick Ferguson underscore 25. I'm just going to stop talking and let it rip, Nick. We are here following Thursday Night Football. We've got a 31-28 Jacksonville Jaguars over the Kansas City Chiefs. How you living, Nick?
I'm living a lot better than Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And being as though I live in Denver, we applaud Jacksonville. Thank you. Sure appreciate you, Trevor Lawrence.
Well, listen, those Jags sitting above your Broncos when we're talking about maybe a first round bye. Let's get ahead of ourselves on a week five. But yeah, as far as, week five coming to a close, the rest of the AFC West, just total disaster compared to your Denver Broncos. And we will get to that Eagles victory. But let's talk about those Jaguars. I mean, listen, it's not just that he is a legend at University of Massachusetts Amherst. It is not just the fact that, you could say that he is my doppelganger. It is not just the fact that he went from being a meme to having the best record of all the rookie head coaches, but the job Liam Cohen is doing with this squad, and I'm going to give a lot more credit to Liam Cohen because as well as they've played at times, it seems like they pull these victories. First it was the 49ers. Now we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. These Jaguars are winning games despite so many mistakes that they make, but tonight you have to give them credit. They tightened up quite a bit, and for a team with 13 penalties, you would not expect it to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Where do you want to start with Thursday Night Football and the Jags' victory, Nick?
Well, first of all, I want to say let's pump your brakes, doppelganger, right?
Oh, I don't
Because
know what you're talking about.
because I know what you're saying as far as, oh, Liam Cohen, he did this, he did that. All I've seen over the past couple of weeks is Trevor Lawrence. So it's Trevor Lawrence on the field who's carrying the weight as though he carried a lot of the criticism for things that didn't happen with this Jacksonville team. Tonight was a marquee win for him and Duval, as your doppelganger would normally say. But on that last drive, when you need it the most, and this is where quarterbacks kind of make a name for themselves, beating a guy like can't be. Let me back up for a second. Trevor Lawrence beating Kansas City, beating a team like that on a night like this, Monday Night Football, where everyone's watching, and it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And you do it right after Kareem Hunt just scored, right? You move the ball down the field. It's like, I guess it's 3rd and 7. And you throw the ball down to Brian Robinson Jr., and he makes a sensational catch. But the thing that got it all, the thing that did it all, falling on the ground, not once, but twice, looking like a freaking baby giraffe just born, gets up, scores a game-winning touchdown. That's what I love to see. That's what he did.
It was unbelievable. He falls down, and he said on the ESPN postgame that he was just looking to throw the football away before he realized, hey, there's nobody around me. I've got time to get up. And then he was looking like, I think Troy Aikman said, Earl Campbell on the broadcast, just shedding tackles on his way to the end zone, just wanting it more than the rest of the Chiefs around him. And that final drive really, to me, made up for a lot of mistakes that we saw throughout this game. His two best throws of the night. You mentioned Brian Thomas on the sideline there. I think that was a 33-yarder. And then he follows that up with the De'Ami Brown, who they missed in such a big, big way last week. This offense has a lot of weapons on it. And, it's not just Travis Hunter that can do multiple things. Like, they're not playing both sides of the ball. I'm all over the place with this game because I have a lot of thoughts on Travis Hunter in particular, and I'm thrilled that you're here so we can talk about the former Buffalo. You just saw not just him, but all these guys playing different roles for this offense, and Trevor Lawrence does deserve a ton of credit, but he's, I think more than ever, got a lot of guys around him that can make big plays and also do the small things. I mean, it's important. Listen, getting chunk plays is huge. They got the big one to Brian Thomas. We'll get to Travis Hunter in a moment here, but chunk plays, using the running game effectively, keeping Patrick Mahomes, that offense, off the football field was just absolutely critical for them to control that clock. And yeah, like you said, having the ball last and having that touchdown drive with 2 minutes to go, that's Kansas City Chiefs type stuff right there, but the Jaguars able to do that. So I'm encouraged, but it's not without seeing mistakes throughout that game. A huge improvement. No false start penalties on the offensive line. They had multiple instances of those over the last couple of weeks, but they played a really clean game. And also, no false starts for Travis Hunter, too, which has happened to him a couple of times. And this is kind of my referendum on Travis Hunter. He should just be playing offense at this point. He's been ramping up more and more snap percentages. He played roughly, I have the snap counts week to week. He started out playing about 65% of the snaps week 1 and was hovering around 55-60% of the snaps. Plays 70% of the offensive snaps and runs routes on nearly 80% of all dropbacks tonight, and then chips in about 40% of the snaps on defense. He's still having issues with lining up correctly in this offense, and part of it is like I see him break up a pass defending Travis Kelce, and then immediately following the punt, there he is lined up on offense in the slot, which is incredible, but like it's leading to mistakes, and he's not totally there. But you see those splash plays that I'm sure you saw time and time again in Boulder, like the 44-yarder, the biggest play the Jags offense had all night. He's not totally there, but I feel like having a handful of snaps in the slot as the slot corner on defense is kind of hindering what he could be doing as far as his complete production profile on offense.
See, that's the great thing about Travis Hunter and the reason why the Jags drafted him in the first place, because we don't really have that many players over history that can do what he's actually doing. I mean, we've seen Bo Jackson be a dual sport athlete. We've seen Deion Sanders, his coach,
Sure,
the CU Buffs, do it, but not do it at the volume and the rate that he is being required to do it. And I get what you're saying as far as the miscues, but I'll look at it this way. Any rookie at any position, they're not going to have everything down pat. They're going to make mistakes. And more importantly, when you're playing both sides of the ball, there's going to be somewhat of an issue. But there were two things that happened tonight. I mean, he got his, I don't want to say his open moment to where he say, welcome to the NFL, but he had to play over two, I believe, Kansas City DBs, which surely will make you got Moss on Sunday morning. But there was something else that was said. I think it might have been Troy Aikman who listed the qualities or activities that, Travis Hunter likes to indulge in off the field. And I think he kind of said that, well, not in that particular order, alluding to the fact that maybe football is not the most important thing for Travis Hunter. I think that was wrong of Troy Aikman to do that, to even say that for a guy who played at a high level, on the collegiate level.
Both sides
of the ball. But just because he enjoys fishing and playing video games doesn't necessarily mean that the guy does not or isn't in his playbook. So I'll digress in that, but I still think.
And to add on to it, and let's get real here. I mean, he and his wife welcomed a newborn, I believe a baby girl. Correct me if I'm wrong. This month, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So on top of everything, he's got a baby that
a
newborn, and it's his first year in the league. Like,
yes,
I think Aikman is out of pocket for that one, but also. We've been there, Nick. I mean, you've literally been there, but I've gone through sleepless nights, and I'm having trouble sitting on my ass working a radio show, let alone playing in the National Football League. And again, it is really cool to see. I believe it was like 65 snaps on offense, and he plays 70 snaps tonight. That's pretty cool. I'm encouraged by it. But for him to have some gadget plays tonight, his offensive workload expanded a little bit. It's just hard to reconcile the draft capital they gave up. And granted, you don't judge a rookie based off of 5 games, but the draft capital they gave up and the quality of players that we've seen so far, a few rookies stand out, including Mason Graham, who the Browns selected with that 5th overall pick. It's just early returns are he's got a lot of work to do, and he's got to do it on the fly in the season. But look, I'm not going to criticize even more than I have to because they did get that win. He did have his splash plays. But when I mentioned like other players having these roles, Travis Etienne had this incredible pickup on Drew Tranquil this is the Travis Hunter catch, had a late blitz pickup on Tranquil and just bought Trevor Lawrence just enough time to get that ball out for Hunter, like that's really cool. I don't know if I've necessarily seen ETN do that. And for a guy whose workload, was cut into a little bit by the other rookie, Bashal Tutin, and we saw LaQuint Allen get a nice kick return. Like they've got plenty of backs to work with, justifying a Tank Bigsby trade who's done absolutely nothing for Philadelphia, and the receiving core we talked about at length. I mean, I really like this team, and that goes without mentioning that defense that has really carried the load through the first 5 games of the season. Devin Lloyd had that 99-yard pick six, the longest defensive touchdown in franchise history. They missed Travon Walker, who's been their best pass rusher, but still got home against Mahomes and this Chiefs offense that maybe will transition to that side of the ball. Or if you want to give your roses to that Jags defense, they've got guys like flying around the ball that have just made such an impact that makes it that much easier for Trevor Lawrence to make a mistake here or there, and the Jags still be able to pull out these wins.
Well, you know what? Here's one thing I definitely want to highlight, because when we look at both of these teams, as much as we want to talk about the defense and how each unit played, which they played pretty decent tonight, but let's talk about the quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks, you're talking about interceptions. That's one. Throwing for a touchdown, rushing for a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence with the game-ending or game-sealing touchdown, he ends up 2-1 versus Patrick Mahomes. But here's the odd stat, which says a lot about both teams and could be problematic moving forward. Both of the quarterbacks led their teams in rushing. That is a problem. Now, we could just say that maybe this is a one-off, and it could possibly be a one-off.
Not for this Chiefs team. It hasn't been.
Well, see, once again, that's a problem. And what we saw was 2 quarterbacks play well, but for me, this was a coming out party for Trevor Lawrence. The way that he played, it was reminiscent of those Clemson Tiger days where he actually was playing against Alabama, right? That's what it looked like to me. Like Trevor had forgotten, based on all the negative criticism that he's received playing in Jacksonville, but then all of a sudden, now he was no longer pushing up daisies. Great things are happening. This was the Alabama game for him, in my opinion.
Yes. And shout out his former head coach, Urban Meyer, who, joined the Jacksonville Jaguars and said playing in the NFL was like playing Alabama every week.
Yes.
Remember, the same guy who had to ask who 99 on the Rams was.
Yeah, that guy. Wait a minute, the same guy who was hitting on a young lady in the bar, knowing as though he was married right after playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, that same guy.
You're not giving him enough credit. He didn't just hit on a younger woman while he was married. The guy ditched the team flight home from Cincinnati to Jacksonville so he could hang out in that area of Ohio where he doesn't have to buy a drink in that state anymore because of his work with the Buckeyes, and the team flew home without their head coach after a Thursday night loss. That is it. Infidelity is one thing, Nick, but
yes,
abandoning the team, I think you would understand, is a much more cardinal sin.
Well, then also to add insult to injury, he didn't even have on the jacket of the Jacksonville Jaguars. No. He had on an overcoat that said Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm just
again, just to make sure he didn't have to pay for that drink. And again, I think we say this all just to, I love clowning the guy, but Liam, like a competent coaching staff is just such a breath of fresh air for this team. The NFL, look, Jacksonville's not the biggest market, but with that fan base and the players that have come through, and those, this is the one thing I tweet about the game. Those jerseys, Nick. When a team wearing those jerseys play well, I truly believe it is good for the National Football League. And also good for the National Football League is parity. Briefly on the Chiefs here, they're working Xavier Worthy back into that offense. On that final drive when Patrick Mahomes throws that ball up in the air, and it seems like Kelsey and Xavier Worthy were about to converge on the ball once more, I had to shield my eyes, not again.
Yes.
Don't ruin Taylor's weekend. She just put out a new record. She loves Xavier Worthy. Don't crash out and take him out yet again. Other than me having irrational fears of this team losing Xavier Worthy, because They have no other playmakers. We talked about the rushing game. What is plaguing this Kansas City Chiefs team that, look, it's different than it was a year ago. They were winning these kinds of games. Now they're losing them, sitting 2-3 through the first 5 weeks.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. Last year, they won a bevy of games in the closing minutes of the game because while other teams found ways to lose games, they found ways to win games. And there are some thoughts that maybe the guys in the striped shirts may have had something to do with it. I don't know, but that's kind of what I've heard. I've heard people talk about it, but with these Kansas City Chiefs, they look entirely different. And I'll say this because it continues to come up. Now, they have Xavier Worthy. They have Hollywood Brown. But there's not a lot of explosive plays that we are used to seeing the Chiefs have and getting them and putting them on short fields. We're not really seeing that. So now they're living life just like Ed and Jed Clampton. They have to matriculate the ball down the field just like everyone else. None of these explosive plays. And I can tell you, man, when you pin a team back and you force them to go 80 to 90 yards, that's very difficult because now you're asking them to have perfection on every single play, being able to get 10 yards here, 10 yards here, however that comes by way of doing it, but it still opens you up for failed plays due to penalties, and this is what we're seeing from Kansas City right now. So this is the new state of Kansas City. Will they ever get back to being what they were in years past? I don't think so.
No, we'll see. They can take advantage of a Lions defense, especially one that is banged up again. This is next week, Sunday night, which we'll preview a little bit more. I'm just looking ahead at the schedule. We can do this a little bit more when we come back before week 6. But look, they go primetime against the Lions, and then week 7, Rashee Rice coming off a suspension. The Vegas Raiders are waiting for them at home. That could be a get-right opportunity for them, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think that about puts a bow on Thursday night. I sure hope so, because we spent almost 20 minutes on it. I mean, that game was insane, right?
Yeah.
And look, I'll hang my hat there, and I'll put my hair up. This is just scintillating, scintillating visual. I'm putting up my Trevor Lawrence hair, speaking of visuals, and we can move on to the rest of week 5, right? Because I had my Trevor Lawrence look with the hair down, but as crazy as we thought Monday Night Football was, it does not compare to how the Tennessee Titans got their first win of the season at the expense. No. It's not even as if the Titans won the game. The Arizona Cardinals just lost that football game. Yeah. Do you want to begin with Amari DiMercado? Do you want to begin with Tyler Lockett scoring a touchdown? Where does your mind take you when you think of how the Cardinals coughed this game up?
Well, let's start with the fact of DiMercado. I mean, being here in Denver, I saw it last year with Jonathan Taylor when the Colts came to play the Broncos. He was clearly out front, but before he crossed the goal line, for some reason, he dropped the ball. And why is this seeming to be somewhat of an alarming thing? Like, we've seen it in college football, and we can expect it in college football. Not on a pro level. And the way that I look at it, some of these guys are not used to scoring, but some guys think about their touchdown celebration that they were practicing back at their home or their apartment. Yes. They're like, I'm going to hurt him with this tonight. But they forgot to take the ball with him. And the scene following that, when you got Jonathan Gannon kind of confronting him and having somewhat of a spirited conversation. Now,
is that what that was?
Yes. That's the only way to classify it. But the optics of it, to be totally honest, wasn't really good.
No. Jonathan Gannon has since apologized for it. Here, just to give context to it, right? This was DiMercado running 72 yards. The Cardinals were up 21-6 at the time, 28-6, you think, with about 13 minutes left in the game would be the nail in the coffin, and yet it's not. Tennessee then goes 6 plays, 80 yards, and just absolutely gets down the field in a big way through Cam Ward. A deep 47-yarder to Calvin Ridley, seeming like those two get along. And then the next drive that Tennessee has the football, the Cardinals come up with a big interception. And then what happens, Nick?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing that got me was there was a turnover, and the idea was that how can you not secure the ball? And then it became it looked like a slip and slide out there because the guys could not corral the ball. When I'm screaming, just fall on the ball. They teach you to fall on the ball in the fetal position so you can cradle the ball to your body. But it was like a game of hot potato as well because the ball is squirting out as no one really wants the ball. Then it ends up in the end zone. How,
Again,
how, how bizarre is that?
Tyler Lockett, Johnny on the spot. I mean, look, again, I mentioned 13 minutes ago with what would have been a 28 a 28-6 lead. Now we're
Yeah.
talking 4.5 minutes to go, and this would have been a 21-12 game with possession. And now all of a sudden, the Titans, they still have to score again, right? They're down two, and the Cardinals immediately punt the ball. And Cam Ward again, this 71-yard, 11-play drive in under 2 minutes became an NFL record, Nick, the longest game-winning drive for a first overall pick in their rookie season, which to me just sounds like me picking cherries off the tree because how many other qualifiers can we add into it? It was on a Sunday. It was week 5. The Tennessee Titans had not won a football game. I mean, look, a couple impressive throws, but I would be lying to you if I told you that because they won the football game that the Tennessee Titans are right. I do know that because they lost the football game, I'm kind of good on the Arizona Cardinals for now. Like, is there any reason, like as prolific as Kyler Murray has been at times, I think the comment that came to mind for me is that he's still a baseball player because in Major League Baseball you can fail 7 out of 10 times and still be one of the better hitters in baseball. And that kind of completion percentage, that kind of success rate, that clip just does not work in the National Football League. You can go up to the plate, get hit in the head with the football, or a baseball in this case, and still get up to bat 3 or 4 more times that game. It just does not work that way in the National Football League, and I just have no read on these Arizona Cardinals unable to put more than 1 or 2 drives together a game. Like, I'm out. I'm good. I'm good if you're good.
Well, I'll say this. I think the judgment is still out on, or the jury that is, still out on Kyler Murray. And I look at it this way. Every quarterback needs, I guess, a couple of essential things. One, let's talk about offensive line protection. And let's just say running game, right? With James Conner being out for the
Yep.
season, that impacts you. And then who are your players down the field? And we've known over the past year, and it seems as though it's trending in that same direction, Trey McBride continues to be your number one receiver. That's a problem when your most dominating receiver is a tight end option and not the guy that you drafted, in the draft.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that
Arizona,
top 5 pick in Harrison. Yep.
yeah, I mean, the Cardinals have been void of talent far as the offensive outside the numbers help. So that's kind of the same thing that's happening with Kyler Murray. So I don't want to throw dirt on him just yet. I still think he's a capable quarterback. But if they give him some talent, some healthy talent, things will change. You don't think so?
I'm not saying anything bad about him. I just don't want to say anything about him. I mean, the concerns of Trevor Lawrence, who is in year 5 compared to Kyler in year 7, and both of them have the bag. Like, I get that, all the talent hasn't been there at the same time, and both of these quarterbacks have made playoff appearances. But I just, until things kind of change one way or the other, like if we have more, like, look, I can completely go back on my word if they lose another game just like they did on Sunday. Like, I have no problem doing that. But there's so much better things that happen in week 5 that I feel like talking about. And that would include your Denver Broncos, who went in
Go
and
Broncos!
on the road in Philadelphia, Nick Ferguson, they took out the reigning Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, they
Come
did.
on.
Yeah, they did. I thought that was going to be a defensive matchup between Vic Fangio and, when you think about, what was going on with the Broncos defense and Vance Joseph. But what it came down to, especially in the fourth quarter, Kevin Patullo right? I don't know why was it that he somehow changed the game plan. It may have something to do with maybe both his wide receivers in their own way complaining that their offense needs to have some changes. They're not throwing the ball as much, they're running the ball too much. And the one thing that they needed to do against another defense was run the ball. And can you believe that heading into the third quarter, Saquon Barkley only had 6 carries? Can you believe it? 6 carries for a guy who had more than 2,000 yards last year. That blows my freaking mind.
No, I mean it was an overcorrection, right? Because the Eagles were in control of this game 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, I think it was, and
Yeah.
they just completely abandoned the running game and they're doing all this, they're throwing the football with a lead. The Denver Broncos didn't make any adjustments until the second half. And kudos to them for finally getting there. But it seemed like the Eagles were in control. And you're right, decided to throw the football. And look, if they're gonna make Jalen Hurts throw, we'll try to get back at them for that. And they never really seem to do it. And as close as that game has come to a victory or maybe going the other way. I mean, the Denver Broncos are a blocked kick away from being 4-1, and they had that 3-point loss to the Chargers. Meanwhile, we've talked about the Chiefs. The Chargers. They had that brutal loss to the Giants, and then the Commanders come into their house and beat them 20-10. Then we find out that Omarion Hampton is going on IR. Everything in the West seems to be trending for your Denver Broncos, Nick.
Well, you know what? It's crazy what a couple of weeks would do because, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, everyone was raving about, Justin Herbert and the 3-0 undefeated, Chargers. And then all of a sudden you lose, you go to New York, and that was a game that I didn't think the Chargers they were going to lose. I thought they were going to dominate that game. And then Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart end up winning that game because those two young guys play well. And then Brian Burns and that Giants defense, where was that? And they put a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. And then you're thinking, okay, well, we go back, we lick our wounds, we come out and we'll win again against the Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, and you lose another game, and not just lose another game, you're losing players. And you've already lost Najee Harris. So you're going to lose Omarion Hampton for about 4 games? That puts
Right.
a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. Now you have to throw in Hassan Haskins, who is quite familiar with his head coach, dating back to his days in Michigan. Is that going to be enough? I don't know.
No, the answer is no,
No.
because before the running back injuries, it was Rashawn Slater, then it was Joe Alt, then Trey Pipkins went out. They're playing their 4th and 5th tackles, one of which is out of position because they're hurt on the interior as well. Mekhi Becton hurt also. Like, that's the foundation of it, the offensive line, and there's no wonder that Justin Herbert, through his first 5 years, is sacked more than Andrew Luck, who decided to hang it up at that point in time. That's not going to be Justin Herbert. I mean, God willing, but it's clearly feeding into the issues that they have running the football and just put the ball in the best player's hands. And as great as Justin Herbert has been, he's also getting wrecked out there because of it. So it's just trending positively for your Denver Broncos. And it's just a really polite and nuanced way for me to say the Chargers are just going to keep charging, Nick. It's what they do.
Wow, that was the saying when I was playing for the Broncos and we were playing against Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson. The Chargers are going to charge it, and I guess that is the case, and injuries don't really help you out. But I'll say this. We all know that injuries are a part of the game, and we all, as fans, have these conversations. If they had this guy, things would be different. It just brings me back to, looking at Kyle Shanahan. So this is why I don't feel so sorry for the Chargers because, I mean, no one's had teams beaten up over the past couple of years more than John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, but they seem to find ways to win, even with the thrown away Mac Jones.
Well, don't get me started about my boy. And honestly, like the craziest graphic that I saw in quite a long time, The Athletic had a profile on him about what he saw in Marina Del Rey, where he was staying before the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
Feel free to look that up on your own time. I don't think there's any reason for me to put that out here on our podcast. Those guys, that's what we are. We're going to talk football and not the dark and haunting things that Mac Jones had to put away as the San Francisco 49ers put away the LA Rams at SoFi. How about that for a transition? Your Broncos are going to get their double dose in New York. They go to London to play the Jets, which again, the NFL doing its best to send their most exciting teams and superstars out to London because we saw Carson Wentz and Dylan Gabriel a week ago, and now we will get Justin Fields or honestly probably Tyrod Taylor for an 0-5 Jets team that has absolutely no life to them, and I will spare you this week, but Aaron Glenn is the worst rookie Jets head coach. They are the only team that does not have a takeaway on defense yet. And, I'm going to spare you from your dear and close personal friend, former teammate Aaron Glenn. We'll do that another time because I thought this was even crazier than how bad the Jets are. And we will get to a Thursday night game that features the other team in New York, plus those Philadelphia Eagles. We've got an NFC East battle for Thursday night. And the Eagles are a heavy favorite to go into MetLife. And for the issues that they had on offense, I think it would be a great opportunity to get right when they go on the road against the Giants. And then they face quick turnaround for Brian Flores and the Vikings defense. But then they get the Giants again. So we've got Eagles-Giants 2 of the next 3 weeks. It starts on Thursday night. Nick Ferguson.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because for me, after a tough game against the Denver Broncos, a game that the Eagles had in hand with that 17-3 lead and just kind of blowing that away. And that was a game that was really iffy because it's probably a game I've seen with the most inconsistent officiating that I've seen in my time. But it helps when you get a double dose of the New York Giants, a team that just lost, oddly enough, to Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore and the Saints. I thought that Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterwood was going to go in and run roughshod. Didn't really happen. And when you think about Jackson Dart, he's dealing with injuries. So if that ankle isn't doing too well, that means should we see Russell or James Winston?
Well, it'd be Russell if he hasn't already, completely given up on the season. That's not the type of person he is. I'm not even going to speculate.
No, he's not.
It would be Russ. I'm hoping one of those guys ends up in Cincinnati because we also did not talk about Jake Browning and one of the worst quarterbacked games that I have seen in a couple of years. But they had to have that game against the Chargers. The Chargers knew how important that game was for them with the future at quarterback, at running back, on the defensive line. They needed everything to click, and they got that win, and there was a huge emotional lift. So there was a little bit of a letdown to come, and they have a real measuring stick. I think this is a great opportunity really for the Eagles because, look, we can clown the Giants all that we want, but they have a great pass rush, which is going to apply a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts because when he can't get to his first read, and it's kind of like really basic to say that, well, if he can't get to his first read and if he doesn't have as much time to throw the football, he's not as good of a quarterback. That is true of 32 of 32 starting quarterbacks, Nick, but in particular, a good pass rush while the back end of that defense having its issues is a good way for the Eagles to figure out where they are. Because I think the comparison, we mentioned those Chiefs teams that always found a way to win. That was the Philadelphia Eagles for the last 19 games. And then, penalties and mistakes like that are what, made Cinderella's slipper or her carriage turn into a pumpkin. And they finally do lose that game. So, I'm encouraged by it. I'm not necessarily going to completely count out the Giants, but they want to run the football. They want to try to keep possessions as long as they can. But it's just going to be hard to do that against that defense. So I would definitely give a huge advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles, though I don't necessarily think it's going to be the most high-scoring game. It may be a classic MetLife situation where you get down in the muck, and the Eagles are more than happy to play that football game, which is why I give them a heavy advantage, and they may, win by more than a touchdown, which is what they're expected to do.
Well, I think this is a game where it's going to call for a lot of internal reflection. for the Eagles because coming into the Sunday's game against the Broncos, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of frustrated players, and you have to expect that's going to happen. Think about the number of offensive coordinators that Jalen Hurts has had to deal with. That's multiple systems, multiple verbiage, exchange, and when you're a quarterback, you want to be able to feel comfortable at the line of scrimmage that you can go and check to any play you want to check to. But sometimes when you have all those plays swirling around in your head, you're just trying to make, sense out of nonsense. And that's kind of where this team is. And I'm hoping Kevin Patullo, after losing to the Broncos the way they did, that there's going to be some subtle changes. But here's what I know as a husband. Here's what I know as a person, as a man. And here's what I know as a coach. You can't make everyone happy, right? You can't. You can try, but there's always going to be someone disgruntled because they're going to feel as though they were left out. So Kevin Patullo, what he needs to do over these next 3 games is go out there and call the best game that he can call, not for one particular player because you're trying to get A.J. Brown his touches because, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. No, you're trying to win football games. What does that mean? Balanced attack. If that means you're running Saquon 25 times, you run him 25 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, you get him involved in the passing game too because he was able to break one for a long score as well. He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. We are those guys. We hope to continue to being your guys because these guys over there, what about those guys? Nick, we've gone on really long because we were just so pumped about Thursday Night Football. Although I do have a personal, like a philosophical thing to run by you as a father and as a father and the man of the house. One of the most sacred things that we have in the entire household is what?
The chair, right?
The thermostat, right?
Oh,
we control.
I'm talking the chair. You said the thermostat.
But am I right here? We control the heat, the air conditioning throughout the home. That is not just typical of me. That is not just typical of you. That is part of the male home ownership experience. Am I right? So, I open this because you missed us the last couple of Sundays. Admittedly, I didn't get to watch wall-to-wall football. I was celebrating both of my sons' birthdays, who were for the rest of their lives. It's the best. Their birthdays are exactly a week apart. This year, it fell on back-to-back Sundays, so didn't get to watch the games as much. We had parties for both boys back-to-back weekends. Now, I didn't say anything the first time. I keep the house. We're in Southern California, a nice balmy 72, maybe 73 degrees, and then the air conditioning kicks in. At the end of the party for my oldest son a couple weeks ago, it's really cold when everybody leaves the house, and I check the thermostat. Somebody changed it to 68 degrees, which is like, I didn't do it.
That's a no-no.
I didn't say anything about it. A week later, for my younger son's birthday, everybody leaves the house. I get a chill. It's 68 degrees again. So I say to my wife, like, hey, did you change the thermostat? Like, that was smart because we had a lot of people in the house. It gets a little bit hotter. She says, I didn't touch the thermostat. Nick, who came into my house back-to-back weekends and changed the thermostat? It was largely family over the house. There were friends, but man to man, homeowner to homeowner, father to father, is it a cardinal sin? Should I be out trying to figure who's messing with my house during my son's birthday parties, or do I just let it go?
Well, I think the first thing is trying to figure it out, but going about it in a very delicate way as you question the witnesses as to who was the perpetrator in changing the thermostat. Now, I will say this.
Okay.
I will say this too. Before you do that, make sure you check the thermostat because sometimes someone can hit the thermostat and change it on like automatic, right? Where it starts doing
Nick, I'm the man of the house. I know how the thing operates, okay? So your advice is to figure it out. I'm not going to let this go. I just need to figure out how to do it the right way.
Now, I'm not saying go Inspector, I guess, Caruso, and when you try to figure this out, but just be very delicate. Don't be the equalizer. I'm talking about the Denzel Washington equalizer. Don't be that guy. But it's something you want to figure out because you can't go into another man's home and start finagling with the thermostat. You can't do that. There's rules to the game,
It
right?
is emasculating. I'm
Yes,
a
it's
man.
rules.
I'm a homeowner. He's a man. He's a homeowner. He's an NFL safety. He's Nick Ferguson. And look, more than just advice and help with football, I'm a better man because of Nick Ferguson. There, I said it. He's having me out going out here. Maybe I'll set up the I'll set up the
Hey,
baby
Cam.
camera up on the thermostat just so I can figure out who is doing this. We're just gonna keep having people over the house. I want to watch NFL on Sundays. It's not gonna happen. We're gonna have people over the house every weekend until we figure out what's going on. What is going on with this podcast? Let's put an end to it, Nick. We'll be back Thursday night. We've got Eagles, Giants, and we will preview the rest of Week 6, including your Denver Broncos heading across the pond to London. So it'll be a lot of fun. Nick, before we head on out of here, do you have anything to say to the people, my man?
Hell yeah, don't touch my damn thermostat.
Thank you. Thank you.